Yeah, thanks, Chrissy, and thanks everyone for turning out today. How exciting for me. I'm a Queensland-based geologist, and we've just had two, and I'm the third, talking about Queensland potential for uranium and the space which is emerging in this part of the world. I've worked in the space for a long time. I started my career out at Westmoreland up in northwest Queensland for Laramide. And to see this focus come back on a jurisdiction which needs this industry it is truly exciting. You know, to reiterate some of the points from Johan there, we've got a sector which is emerging, which is needed. We look at the work that Laramide are doing, and we look at the statement of support that has come in from the investment by Basin Energy up in northwest Queensland. Do we see this emerging space? It's pretty good. I'm going to talk to you about Basin. We are going to run through very briefly our broader portfolio, and I'm going to focus very much on our recent acquisition, which Chrissy just touched on. Again, disclaimer, please feel free to take a look at that at your own leisure. Okay, so we look at this map, and I get it all the time. Pete, bloody hell, you've got projects all over the place. What are you doing? But I fully understand it. I fully get it. We IPO'd this off the back of interest in the Athabasca Basin. So this is the world of some of the best uranium mines on the planet, and some of the best successes if you can get that win. We did some initial work at our Geeky project where we were looking for shallow basement-hosted mineralisation, and we got what we believe was some extremely exciting early success. But unfortunately, that didn't bring enough support to keep that work going. Now, that project's in great standing. We can hold on to that for several years without needing to do any further work on it, and we believe that when the time is right and the tailwinds are with us, that's one that we will move forward when the time's right. We have two of the deeper options there, which are traditional unconformity style targets. They're the big MacArthur River style deposits, or I should say targets. We're looking actively at releasing value from them at the moment through a joint venture or a vend. Late last year, we entered into Scandinavia, into the Nordics. We took an early mover advantage, considering in Sweden, this is a country which is actively pursuing a nuclear program, both from a waste repository point of view and also from a power generation point of view. We looked around the world for potential for these further basement-style mineralizations. Work in this part of the world was done in the 1980s by state-led exploration and found some really good early-stage success. We took an early mover there. We've pegged out what we believe is some of the best shear hosted potential, and a couple of weeks ago, the Swedish government held a press conference confirming that the change in policy to support nuclear uranium mining in this jurisdiction will be happening in January next year. We've done some early mapping. We found some phenomenal samples, excess of 5% uranium in places which were not documented before on large systems, and we'll pursue that come next year when that policy is cemented in place and we can move forward. Now, my focus today is on Queensland, back to where I started my career, and I'm Brisbane-based, as I said. So, briefly, the team, I'd argue, from a small cap or a micro cap company, we're still a $6-7 million company, Val. We have one of the most experienced uranium teams around. My background is about 20 years as a geo, specifically in this commodity. Blake Steele, our chair, former Zarga, ISR, US uranium assets. Corey Billick, ex-Cameco, recent fantastic success with Canalaska in the Athabasca Basin, and the technical powerhouse of Odile Mofray, who leads our projects again with me out of Queensland. Now to the fun bit. We're in northwest Queensland. We're just outside of Mount Isa. Mount Isa, a town, as you all know, with a phenomenal mining pedigree. We've got power, rail, roads, infrastructure, workforce, and a community which really, really wants further exploration and mining. Our project shown on that map is the dark blue, which I do note is a little bit misleading, and it's the first time we've done this preso, so again, please bear with us. But a significant land holding. We're talking almost 6,000 square K of ground directly west of Mount Isa. We are, to the north of us, we have the Valhalla projects and the work that Johan is doing, looking for shear-hosted uranium. And in the centre of our projects, we have Red Metal, which had a recent significant exploration success with its rare earth discovery of the Sabella project. Now, I know this is Uranium Day, but the system we're exploring, we have to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing immediately, and that includes looking for both uranium and rare earth potential in the same sequence, so please bear with me. What's the plan? Now, potentially different to the traditional work of Mount Isa, which is focused on the shear hosted potentials of the Valhalla. We believe, if we look at the geology here, that there is potential for an analogous system to the Beverley Honeymoon deposits of South Australia. Now, primarily speaking, we have, this is a cross-section, a big granitic unit striking about 130, 40 k's north-south, 15, 20 k's east-west. And within that, we have zones of some really anomalous uranium content. Now, whilst no geologist ever agrees, as most of you will be aware, there's a lot of research which suggests that that is the primary source for the Valhalla deposits and for those shear-hosted deposits that Johan is exploring for. To the west, we have a big sediment package. Now, this sediment package has been confined quite tightly, and we've got continuous drainage to the western side. We call this the Barclay Downs for a significant period of time. So primary, you've got a granitic source, you've got a hot rock, you've got potentially a paleochannel system, and you've got a sediment package. So we're not the first ones to think about this. The guys at Summit Resources had a crack at this back in 2007-8. They went and flew EM, and from the EM, they managed to map what looks like a really nice, coherent pack of paleochannels, all draining from that hot rock. Remember the scale. This is a big, big area. Not one set, a shallow set sitting at about 15 meters, but then a deeper set sitting at about 50 meters. We think about what drilling has been done. Can we de-risk this any further? So far, you've got a hot rock, you've got a big drainage system. There's been a little bit of base metals work done and a little bit of phosphate work done. In that drilling, they've identified what we call redox fronts. So, not redox fronts, they've identified reduced and oxidized sediments. Now, the interface of those two is where we're looking for uranium precipitation. If you've got both, you've probably got an interface. So some of the key fundamentals are in place for exploring this. Now, let's move 15 years further forwards, and we think about that big Sabella granite. And then we look at what Rob Rutherford and the guys at Red Metal have done with their success in exploration for rare earths. There we go. They have found what is arguably a significant, very large rare earth discovery, also hosted in that same rock, which we're saying is the source for our uranium potential. So rare earths now. What the guys who we've purchased this asset from did was went and looked at regional geochemistry data. And directly to the west, in that same sediment package, which we're saying is prospective for uranium, we're seeing rare earth sitting in the sands up to 1,000 ppm. Now, not a few samples, but a regionally significant hotspot sitting straight above that paleochannel network. Then we dig deeper, and we go into that EM data that the Summit guys did. And what do we start to see? Beneath that upper paleochannel network, we see a laterally extensive anomaly, or a conductive anomaly, which spreads a bloody big area and about 15 meters thick. So considering that these sediments are derived from that granite, the interpretation being is this is a big flat-lying clay unit. Directly above this at surface, we're seeing those 1,000+ ppm rare earths sitting within the sands. Is there potential for Brazil-style, clay-hosted rare earth sitting in the same system as what we're targeting our uranium for? Now, from our perspective, I went into this, I'm not pretending that I'm biased, I went into this for a uranium play, 100%. But if I can do two rolls of the dice on the same target and have that potential regional scale win, let's try. Now, the guys who we've purchased this from had already put in place a Queensland government grant, so there's $150,000 to go out and start doing drilling on this. This is shallow exploration. We're only talking 40 meters sort of drill targets. We're doing air core, quick, rapid. One of the things with this company, and Jono has chipped me in every preso we've ever done together about how expensive it is to explore the Athabasca, mate, I've got the cheap one. Very excited. Thank you, mate. Okay, so regional scale perspective for paleochannel hosted uranium, early stage, let's start de-risking it. Let's use this clay hosted rare earth target to start to unpick this paleochannel network. Let's take the scientific approach. Let's take our time. We can do that because in the meantime, we can advance these rare earth targets. There's news flow, there's cheap work, get on with it. Now, I have to touch on this briefly. This is not a uranium target, but I've got to tell you about it because it's another big one. The guys at Red Metal have had a phenomenal success with their drilling. They identified sorry, I got my slides out of order here. They identified a granite-hosted, low-grade but large tonnage rare earth opportunity in this granite. They did that by looking at old geophysical drill holes, so drill holes that were used to put out seismic sensors, and end-of-hole samples. And in the bottom of those samples, they said, oh, there's some pretty elevated rare earths within this. They went and drilled underneath that and had a significant discovery at the Sabella. The guys who we purchased this asset off did a similar program. They got a trailer-mounted auger rig, and they went out and drilled some holes and took some samples. And guess what? They were getting the same sorts of elevations. They're getting 5 meters at a couple of thousand ppm total rare earths to the end of holes, completely open down. That, from a junior perspective, for a company with a valuation of a few $1 million, is a pretty exciting prospect to be able to go and replicate and go and put some RC drilling in. So the Red Metals guys took that anomaly, did a fence line of RC, and the rest history. They're now a $50, $60 million market cap off the back of that success. They also went and did some early met work, which is important from our perspective with regards to the sediment-hosted side as well, and found that this thing was amenable to relatively sensible processing, potentially to heap leaching. They were getting relatively low acid consumptions using a pH of only 2 to 2.5. And that's just a bit of a demonstration for that journey from discovery that that company has had. Now, finally, this is not the primary target for us, but this is one that excites me. Jan was talking about this shear-hosted potential. We have the ground directly to the west of your guys as well. And what we see here is that Sabella granite, which we're saying is the source for the uranium. And around the outside of that is wrapped a unit, the Cromwell metabasalt, the host rock, the same fundamentals that the Valhalla deposit is hosted within. We played around, and we got a little bit fancy with this, and played around the radiometric anomalies to make Valhalla stick out as best as we could on a regional scale. Let's make it glow, and really trying to highlight that alba-type alteration that Johan was talking about. And sitting adjacent to that granite, in similar-looking structures, we have some phenomenally big radiometric anomalies. We don't know what they are. I'm not saying these are drill ready, but from another string to the bow, this will be one of the places we'll be out mapping over the next few weeks. Let's go and have a look. Let's go do that early stage exploration work. In terms of the acquisition, we issued, so we had about 120 million shares in issue. We issued 80 million shares and then issued a series of back-end performance rights. All of those performance rights are triggered upon genuine company-making success. So we set this up to both reward the vendor, but to get our shareholders a pretty good seat at the table. At the same time, we did a private capital raise. We placed that to some of our main key, or some of our existing holders. We did this at market. We bought in 1.25 million. There was no other incentives on that. And we had $1 million in cash at the end of last quarter. So we're sitting at just over a couple of mil of cash. When we're talking about this sort of drilling, that's enough to give all of those district scale targets a first pass. We're lining up to be drilling over the next few weeks. We'll have our shareholder meeting for this in about a month, and we'll be drilling sediment-hosted targets we're targeting in the next 6 to 8 weeks. Exciting times for us. Still a very small market cap, still plenty of room to run. That's our story. Thanks, guys.